wait till they finish somewhere, yeah? I gotta sit properly. Yeah, that's it. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Allahumma aj'al jam'ana hadha jam'an mubarakan, واشرح لنا صدورنا ويسر لنا أمورنا اللهم زدنا علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you everyone for attending the third installment of our marriage series. Alhamdulillah, tonight we are with our esteemed guest. Can we call him a guest though? Can we call you a guest?
Man, that's conflict of interest.
We're with our esteemed founding member of Markaz Imam Ahmad, Liverpool Islamic Centre, brother Mohamed Rima. For those who don't know him, give a brief overview. Brother Mohamed Rima has been through many pathways in life, alhamdulillah, from business owner to full-time student, full-time father, student in the counseling field and also in the Islamic studies field. Mohamed Rima holds a diploma in counseling. He has various accreditations from the Gottman Institute, which is a world-renowned counseling service, if that's what I should call it.
Yeah, training.
Yeah. Counseling training service. And he also holds a Bachelor of Islamic Studies from the formerly known Islamic Online University to now the International Online University. Alhamdulillah, for decades he has been in the da'wah work, in the grassroots da'wah work, where he started off literally at Krispy Kremes in Orange Grove, pulling brothers.
Sheikh Mustafa al-Majzoub, rahimahullah.
Pulling brothers off the streets and to the masajid. So he comes with a wealth of experience in every part of his life. Alhamdulillah, he has found his new calling, which is assisting Muslims and in some cases non-Muslims with their marital disputes and with counseling in general. So thank you very much for attending and for accepting the call. I can imagine 12 hours a day counseling.
No, not 12, about 8.
8 hours, subhanAllah. But 8 hours of hearing people's problems, subhanAllah. I can barely do one.
Yeah, it is draining. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Thank you everyone for coming. And Ali, jazakallah khairan for setting this up. How would you like to begin this? Q&A or?
Q&A?
Or discussion?
Okay. So the topic today is about conflict management and disputes in marriage in general. Now, there's no perfect marriage, nor should someone be aiming for a perfect marriage because that's subjective. Something perfect to me is something imperfect to you. Something perfect to you may be imperfect to me. However, from the Quran, from the Sunnah, and from life experience, and from the world of counseling, what do you think is the way to approach any conflict when it arises in marriage? Because we all accept that there will be conflict. And I'm sure a lot of us here, we're not here to hear the theories of conflict and why it occurs and human psychology around it, but what are some practical tips? What can we take today, now, to implement?
Straight in, huh? Wow. We're just on that point of perfect marriages. Even though everybody agrees that, no one will tell you there is such thing as a perfect marriage, but it's the way it's our mindsets, it's our behavior, it's the way we act within the marriage that concludes that we are actually sometimes seeking that, right? And I wanted to mention that who is our best role model? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Did he have conflict? Did he have conflict in his marriages? Yes. More than one? Yes. Multiple times he had conflicts where Allah intervened in many. It's in the Quran, right? So the Prophet, peace be upon him, who is, he embodies perfection, didn't have a perfect marriage. moving on to the Sahaba, moving on to the family of the Prophet ﷺ, did they have conflict? Yes. Did they divorce? Yes. Did the Prophet ﷺ divorce? Who knows? Yes. And just on that topic, divorce being a taboo is fully un-Islamic in our community. Just on that side note, yes, it's not the first option. We don't run to it. We don't endorse it straight away. But it is an option. It's like we've got fire exits here. We don't use them. I mean, we do, right? But really, in buildings, you don't use fire exits, but it's there if you need it. Same as talaq, right? So there is no such thing as a perfect marriage, right? What you need to aim and strive for is, and this is a controversial thing, people say, what do you mean? You settle in? No, you're not settling. But what you need to aim for is a good enough marriage. And we'll describe what that looks like soon. So what's your question?
You know what, let's pick up from there. What's a good enough marriage? What does that look like?
A good enough marriage is a marriage where both parties, husband and wife, know who they are first and foremost. This is a very crucial point. Knowing who you are. Because when you don't know who you are, how do you expect your spouse to know you or to know who you are? If you're changing mindsets and mentalities, and I mean, you can change careers, it's not a problem, but you're changing, you hang out with this type of group of people and they convince you that, you have to establish something, khilafah, for example, and that becomes your way to go. Then you leave them for a bit and you go find another group and they tell you that you must do khuruj and that becomes your thing. And then you go to these other groups that tell you that you must seek not. So you're just changing and changing and changing. You don't know who you are. You might be going through some sort of crisis. You need to know who you are, first and foremost, okay? You need to find your purpose in life. You need to have goals, micro goals, macro goals, and you need to know who you are. That's the first point. Both husband and wife need to know who they are. The second thing that what creates a good enough marriage is that both know the other person. Okay, and this is a very important point. Knowing your spouse. And not just knowing your spouse according to how you want to, feel that you think, yes, I know him or I know her. They have to feel known by you. That you get them, you understand them, right? So how do we do this? We do this when we first meet. When man and woman, wife first meet, they get to know each other. They try, they ask questions, they're showing interest and curiosity. They show this interest and they show this curiosity. They're asking questions, what's your favorite food and where do you want to go and what do you want to do and what's your favorite color, all these questions. And it's like, you feel like you know each other. But then you get married and that usually stops. Okay? And we don't stay the same, Who I was when I was 20 is not who I am now at almost 40. Right? And I'm sure you guys are the same thing and your wife is the same thing. So we're constantly growing, changing, letting go of things, adding things in our lives, different goals, different visions, different wants and needs and struggles and traumas. So these are occurring, right? When the couple are not continuously updating their knowledge of each other, then they can drift apart. So number one is knowing yourself. Number two is knowing your partner regularly. And this is simply done by a simple check-in, with no distractions, no phones, no whatever. It's simply asking your partner, your spouse, how's the world treating you? What's going on in your mind? What's one thing that you're stressed about? What's one thing that you're looking forward to? What's one thing that's really, getting under your skin? And just listen. And then you might learn something, right? So that's point number two. Point number three, a good enough marriage is to have emotional intelligence. Very, very, very important. How to deal with people, right? This is a common thing that comes up in the counseling office is, dealing with emotionally immature people. People who can't count to 10, people who go from 0 to 100 in a drop of a hat, people who don't know how to communicate, people who don't know how to express their needs, people who don't know what they're feeling. They can't even express their feelings because they don't even know what they're feeling. So their vocabulary in feelings and the descriptions is very, very below kindergarten, really. And we're getting married, So when you're married, right, you're going to feel certain things, you're going to need certain things, you're going to want certain things, you want to complain, but you don't know how. So what do? You bottle up, and then you explode. So there's a lack of empathy, there's a lack of reading emotions, there's a lack of expressing emotions, there's a lack of putting yourself in other people's shoes, and so on and so forth. So that's the third point there, to make a good enough marriage. And the fourth point is not to make negative comparisons. People who are making negative comparisons, they're not in a good enough marriage. They're not in a good marriage. They always feel that the grass is greener on the other side. They always feel that if only my wife looked like this, I will be the happiest person in the world. If only my husband did this, it would be amazing. If you're thinking this way, this is actually one of many signs towards some form of betrayal. This is the first one. They call it a cascade of betrayal. The first one is negative comparisons, where you're constantly looking at your spouse and you're looking at what's not there. And you're making these comparisons, and the comparisons could be real or imaginary. So it could be a real person or an imaginary person. You just want them to be, so you want perfection. While you yourself are not, some flops. Some people are flops and they want perfection. There's no work, there's no gym, there's no nothing, there's no money, there's no whatever, materialistic value, yet they want the other thing, right? So these are basically what makes a good enough marriage. And last but not least, is that you know your rights as a Muslim husband, as a Muslim wife, and you know your role, your responsibility. You've got to know this. You should learn that stuff before you get married. You should take a course, learn the fiqh of marriage, the fiqh of divorce, and then get married, right? So these are basically what make a good enough marriage. Both husband and wife are reciprocating. They're reciprocating needs. They're reciprocating. There's compromise, right? It's never my way or the highway, or your way or the highway. There is compromising. And to add that the man is a good leader. That's a very, very, very important point. That the man is a good leader and not an insecure leader. Because insecure leaders cause what all the insecure leaders are doing overseas. the presidents of Mubarak, see them? They're all insecure leaders, right? That's what they do. They cause chaos and wars and killing and havoc. That's what us as husbands, we need to learn how to be secure, compassionate, strong leaders within our homes. So I hope that answers that question.
So I just want to zoom in on the open communication point. So open communication it's required in every single part of your life, whether in the workplace, whether at school, whether in university, whether in a marriage. Open communication is always required. It's a skill that everyone must have. It's a soft skill that everyone must have.
Correct.
On this point, so at the start of a marriage, after the honeymoon phase, after you get to know each other, after, everything becomes normal to each other, and the real work starts, children are in the mix now. This is where you find so many marriages start to fail and crumble.
Yes.
Because the open communication is no longer there. Whether it's time, whether it's odd work, someone may be working a night shift, wife may be doing the day shift. The children are from childcare straight into the care of one of the parents. What do you suggest here in this circumstance, which is the majority of people, at a time like now, economic crisis, inflation, women are at work, men are at work, everyone needs to do their part. And there's no shame in this whatsoever being brought up, because this is the reality of Sydney at the moment, where everyone needs to do their part in supporting each other. So in this current environment and predicament, where open communication is so difficult, and you may be in a workplace with mixed genders, so you're speaking to someone more than you're speaking to your spouse. So the husband speaking to foreign women, by foreign I mean non-mahram, women that have no relation to him, more than their own wife, and vice versa.
Correct.
Where do we strike the balance here, or how do we try and protect ourselves from this fitna and improve marriage in this regard? And if one of the spouses is on board and the other isn't, would that cause more of a conflict?
Shway, shway.
Right, when I ask questions, it just all comes out at once.
Okay.
Afterwards,
All right,
inshallah. Go
okay.
for it.
So the first part of that question is how to protect yourself living in this modern lifestyle where we are exposed to certain things that can cause fitna. Right. So the couple need to make sure they're working overtime to protect their relationship. And one thing that keeps on coming up is the issue of attention. Attention. Getting attention. Right? Needing attention. Now, this falls under the category of expressing needs, and a lot of us don't know how to express needs. A lot of us don't know how to say, hey, baby, it's been a while since we sat and chat. I miss you. Can you spend more time with me? We don't do that, right? Look, everyone's laughing. Like, what the hell? This guy's from Mars, right? But that's how you're meant to speak. Instead of bottling it up and having this need of wanting attention, which is absolutely normal, you're a human being, and then you're getting it from a work colleague who you're seeing every day. And she might say, hey, you got nice hair. That's a nice beard, akhi, tabarakallah. You might be like, ooh, me? Huh? You know what I mean? Day after day, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So, boundaries in the workplace is very important, but at home, what needs to happen is that you need to make sure that you're sharing admiration and appreciation and compliments and time with each other, so that way, when you go out in the real world, your needs are met to some degree. It's not below zero, right? And this is the responsibility of the husband and the wife. So to protect that, to have the proof against fitna, you can say, or proof against whatever, there needs to be regular communication at home. Expressing needs is one way. The other thing I love is a weekly, you can call it like a shura meeting with the family, right? With the husband and the wife separately to the children. And here you discuss the whole week. Your wins, your losses, your struggles, your happy moments, all those small things that you just want to share to a friend, right? You should be sharing that stuff with your spouse. So even if you're not interested in what your spouse is sharing, like they might be talking about certain things, whether it's fishing, whether it's work, whether it's whatever, and you're not really interested, but it's important and very, very important that you pay attention and learn and listen. Because this is another pathway to that. Whereas if they go to work and then there's an opposite gender who now is sharing the same thing, that's another pathway. Does that make sense? So the couple at home need to be having weekly meetings, sit-downs, where they have turns speaking for about 10 minutes each. The other one's listening, and they just talk about what's going on in their life. And the partner is showing interest and curiosity, very two key points. Curiosity is by asking questions. Tell me more. What else happened? No way, that happened? Get lost. Curiosity, interest, like that, right? And being interested as well, like leaning forward, don't play on your phone, so on and so forth. This is one way of many ways that you can, stuff that you can do that will prevent couples from, falling into that slump. And it is a slump. And there's a difference between, now we fall into the category of cheating, right? There's a difference between a situational infidelity, which is bad, and a characterological infidelity, which is repeated behavior. There's a difference. So the situational is like the example we're giving. You have no intention of going out and doing this, but you're interacting with the same person every time and every day. You grow some feelings, and so on and so forth. And one thing leads to another. That's what they call situational, and the other one's what they call characterological, which is repeated behavior, false promises that are always broken, secrets and lack of transparency and dishonesty and all these types of things. So it's more of a personality thing, maybe a sex addiction or something, some sort of issues there. But that's one way that we can prevent that from happening.
Now, so in regards to the open communication part, it was the last part of the question, where say one of the spouses is open to improving the situation, but the other one isn't. How can we influence, or how can they influence their spouse to take this part of life seriously?
So the question is exactly, one wants to improve the marriage and one doesn't?
Yes, in the sense of, see, the open
Communication,
part,
yeah.
in the sense of, life's so hectic at the moment, we
Yeah.
have no time for each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, one of them wants to push for that time, and the other one
Does
is just
not.
too busy with what they're doing at the time.
Okay. So I always say this. If your spouse is expressing a complaint, we need to spend time together. We need to spend more time together. We need to spend more time, and months and years go by, and you do nothing, that is a clear indication that you don't give a hoot about your partner's needs. It is. Tell me otherwise. If someone's telling you, I need this, please, I need this, and you do nothing, that shows that they don't really love you. That's what it is. Okay? Now, it doesn't mean you have to meet the need 100% of the time, but you need to show some sort of effort. Okay, well, my wife is asking for more time. She wants to do certain things. I need to make sure that I'm willing to sacrifice and compromise what's reasonable, to show that I am meeting some of her needs. Okay? So that point there is interesting, right? If you express a need and it's not respected at all, 0%, it's a sign that they don't care about you. As harsh as that sounds. Marriage is about fulfilling each other's needs to some degree. You have that responsibility, whatever is reasonable, you see. And it's not the partner's responsibility to fulfill all their needs 100%. No, a person needs to have family, a masjid, a society, to get their needs met from other sources, but the partner plays a role. And if the complaint is a marital complaint, we need to spend time with each other, no one else can fulfill that. I'll go find a hobby. That's not going to fulfill it, right? So the marriage is there for that. So yeah, we need to respect our partner's needs. How to express a need? I'll teach you this. The common thing we do is we ask for what we don't want in a way of expressing a need. So I'll give you an example. If your partner is working a lot and they're not on home when they say they would, and you've cooked dinner, so I'm talking to the wives here, you cook dinner, you're waiting, 7 p.m. he said he'll be home at 7 p.m. It's 8 o'clock, no phone call, no nothing, and he comes home, dinner's cold, you're angry, you're bottling up now, you think, here we go again, it's just another day of failed promises. So what you don't do is you don't say, I don't want you to work anymore. I don't want you to be late anymore. Or I don't like when you're late. You don't do that. A better way to express a need is to ask for what you do want. Because when you ask for what you don't want, the other person becomes, if they're like defensive people, they'll become defensive. They're hearing an attack. They're hearing an attack. Okay? Get off your phone. You're on your phone too much. Attack. You're always late. Attack. Right? So how do you express what you need? You ask for what you do want. Can you put your phone down and have a conversation with me? Can you spend time with me? Can you be home at 7 p.m.? Very specific. I need you to be home at 7 p.m. It's important to me to have dinner together at least twice a week. Can we talk about this? If you do this in this proper way, assertive way, a healthy partner will respond and say, okay, I'm working a lot, I need to make some time. What's important to you? Okay, I can't be home 7 days a week for this. We can have dinner together 3 days a week. Mesh, now some percentage of that need is met. So to express a need, you ask for what you do need as opposed to what you don't, to minimize the defensiveness in the other person.
So it's mitigating risk of blowback.
Yeah, and I'll explain if you know when that time is right. I've got a little thing here about how to do conflict, basically.
So
We
on
can
that
talk more of
point
that.
though, so say you have negotiated to come together, both are reasonable, everything's great, and something incidental occurs where, say you're a plumber and a pipe bursts and you miss one of those points that you have agreed on.
Yeah, you make a phone call, you communicate.
So should the other partner then hold that person up for it?
So they can express obviously what happened. You're late. You said you'll be here at 7, and then they say, well, a pipe bursts and I had to go out there, and this is khair, inshallah. You know, you have to compromise. You can't be rigid in these areas.
So there needs to be a
Flexibility
from both sides of
Yes.
of the marriage here.
If there's a pattern of failed needs met, then it's not going to sit well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If there's a pattern of lies, it's not going to go well. You know, the boy who cried wolf, you know? It's one of those things. But if there's a pattern of consistency, you show up when you say you do, you do what you say and you say what you do, then no, you know, there's no problem if you're late one day and whatever. But if there's a history of lies, inconsistencies, not showing up, then this is going to still be a problem for you. What you can do is show evidence. Make a video call and show the busting pipe, right? If you think that would be helpful for you.
No, so I've got a question here from one of the brothers in regards to hobbies, and it's around control. So say you have a hobby prior to marriage, and this is part of your life. You know, you love cars like this brother sitting over there against the wall. That's his hobby. Oh, you love fishing like that brother over there. That's his hobby. Now, the controlling aspect here, where say that takes time, where the other spouse will say that this time is being forfeited from their rights.
From their rights, yeah.
How do we express this need to the spouse without it being a tug of war type of thing? Where in the sense of, my boundary is I need to do X, Y, Z per week. This is what is required, and there's no negotiation here. It's part of my well-being.
Right. So how, I mean, it will differ from couple to couple, person to person. Generally speaking, the man, let's say it's the man that's got this hobby, or the wife, a wise person knows when they're spending too much time in a certain area and neglecting other rights, right? You know this. But if you're arrogant and egotistical and you don't give a damn, then you're going to do what you want to do, right? So the smart person, the wise person, is the person that when he does something that's a hobby and he knows, he feels that, mate, you know what, I've been doing this a lot. Let me check in with the spouse and see if they got any needs here. You see what I'm saying? So it's just the self-awareness is the basic, common sense is the best thing to have, I guess, in that situation. However, to be more specific, if you have a hobby and it's like a very important hobby of yours, you know, it's something that you can't give up, you need to sit with your spouse and ask them, do you have any issues with what, you know, how are you going with this? Because as time goes by, you can get busier, you might have more kids. You can't be going to the same hobby, the same when you have an extra kid, for example. So it's very important to have like a consultation meeting with the spouse and check in with each other. Communication is key.
So the point here that I want to try and extract from there is that the right of the spouse is greater than you completing your hobby or you fulfilling your hobby.
Yes.
So when you enter a marriage, you accept this. You accept that the right of your spouse, whether female or male, the right of your spouse is greater than any hobby that you had. And this needs to be accepted from day one.
Correct, yeah.
Now, should this be a point of consultation during the marriage process?
You mean like during courting?
During courting.
Yes. A very important question to ask is about hobbies, self-care, you know, what they do for themselves and stuff like that. And to ask questions, you know, if the person says, yeah, my hobbies are X, Y, and Z, ask how frequent do you do that? And then, you know, how will you navigate this when you're married? Ask that question. Ask those questions where if, you were to have 3-4 kids, if there was an emergency, where does that sit? It's a very simple question, but it's a very important question.
No, because over time you'll find that your spouse may build some resentment towards you from this hobby.
Yes, correct.
So there it's where you analyze what's more important here. And the hobby, obviously, a hobby could be a positive income generating hobby, or it could be just a complete waste of time, like playing Call of Duty all night.
Yeah.
So it's the, it's negotiating there.
Yeah.
What time is yours and what time is theirs.
Correct. And look, going back to the expressing needs, if the partner feels that their spouse is spending too much time somewhere, you need to express that as a need. I feel distant and I feel like we haven't spent time with each other. It's been a while. And I feel that there's a lot of time spent with this hobby of yours. Can we talk about that?
Now, on that point of expressing emotions and feelings, there are different ways to express love. Some call it the love languages. They say there's 4 love languages, for example, or 5 love languages. If your love language is different to your spouse's, and one of them feels unfulfilled because your love language doesn't align with their love language, how do we go about expressing this need to the spouse and then it's being reciprocated?
Yeah, it's an important point. So I don't know if people know what love languages are. It's a very common. You can easily research it. So we all have a way of, the way we like to love people, or the way we like to be loved. Okay. So if your love language, so to speak, is
acts of service.
Let's say acts of service is one, right? So you like to give, you like to do things for the other person, okay? But their love language is receiving gifts, let's say, right? Or words of affirmation. So they love words of affirmation, they love compliments, they love, jazakallah khairan for that little thing there, they love to be seen for the stuff that they do. But you are acts of service. You're very logical, right? And this is a very common cycle. So the man is usually acts of service, right? He likes to, make money, fix things, beautiful. And that's his love language. He believes this is how I show my wife love. Where she, most commonly, would, not always, it's not blanket, but most commonly she would like words of affirmation or gifts or quality time, right? And then she would complain, you don't love me. And he'll be like, what? All this stuff that I do and I work, I slave like a dog.
That Louis Vuitton bag.
Yes, I bought you that Louis Vuitton bag. And why? Because the man is actually very logical in the way that they see things. Okay, where the woman is more from an emotions perspective. Okay, so it's very important to know what your love language is and what your spouse's love language is, and to try to meet them where they are, where they like to be loved. It's pretty simple, it's straightforward. And your love language can change from time to time. And this reminds me of going back to that first point. This goes back to knowing one another. You need to know this stuff. You need to be increasing your knowledge about your spouse, because this can change. Sometimes when you go through certain life issues, you want this type of affection, more touch, for example. You might be going through some other issues, you want some distance. You want love from a little bit of a distance, you know what I mean? And that's okay, but it needs to be communicated regularly, okay?
So there are a lot of questions coming in.
Let's answer them.
In regards to, they're all of a similar nature in the sense of, in times of conflict, at what point can someone identify when to drop a topic because the spouse is starting to get angrier and angrier?
All right. So we're going to do some conflict management tips here. Very basic. So listen up. I don't think I have this slide here. Al-Muhim. Without getting too technical, okay, you need to know what type. There's something called attachment theory. Attachment theory. Very simply put, when you're born, from the moment you're born, okay, your attachment style is being formed. Now, if your mother or your father or both were living in a very stressful environment and they are stressed out themselves,
Chaotic.
or disorganized or chaotic, the child is starting to form this attachment style. Then when the child comes out, when the child's born, they say the first 2 years or 5 years or what have you is the most crucial, where your attachment style is being created. And some studies say you can't change it. Okay, you can manage it and work through the styles, but it's pretty much who you are. So these styles, what are they and how do they come about? Very generally, very quickly. If your parents were available emotionally, physically, they were available and they were consistent, and they didn't have a tough love approach. Yani, let's say you were small and you're crying. Your 1-year-old is crying. I know this is something that Arabs do, I don't know everyone else, but if the baby's crying, they say, let him cry it out. Put him in the room, switch the light off, shut the door, let him cry his way to sleep. Right? The baby learns that my parents are not reliable. We do this because we fear my child's going to be too clingy. So our whole understanding is bil-ilab. Our whole understanding is upside down. The child at that age needs to be clingy. You are their life support. Literally.
You can't teach a 1-year-old to self-soothe.
They have no ability to self-soothe. Logic, they don't have it. Their brain hasn't developed. The emotional part of the brain hasn't even started developing to regulate emotions or mabarishu and read emotions. They are egotistical, rightfully so. It's me. They don't really care about anything else, right? So without going too much detail, when the parent is available, most of the time, there's consistency. The mother's there, the father's there. They show up, right? They don't sneak out the house and then the child looks around, half an hour later, where's mum, where's dad? They snuck out, right? And then they cry. They learn. You're teaching them that you can't depend on people and you can't trust people. You with me, boys? So this is what happens, right? So you got secure attachment style. That's a parent that was consistent, understood emotions. There was gentle parenting or emotionally coaching type parenting, where all feelings are welcome, but not all behaviors are welcome. There's a difference. We get triggered when our child is emotional. Naturally, they're children. They're hungry, they're angry, someone took their toy. We become triggered like, you're disrespecting me. I'm a bad dad. I'm a bad mum. I'm a failure. So all our traumas come up, and then we show aggressive behavior to the child. We want the child to be well-mannered while we are not well-mannered. So to teach your child manners, you've got to have manners. To teach your child respect, you've got to show them respect. Right? So all feelings are welcome, but not all behaviors are welcome. Right? So a child's angry that the sibling took their toy, and they're angry, they're stomping their feet. You don't say, stop being angry. All right, I'm going to another topic here, right?
All interrelated, because that's how you grow emotionally.
Yeah.
And if you don't grow there, you're always immature.
Sahih.
And what occurs, you take that into marriage. So
Yes.
all of it is relevant.
This is where it starts, right? But not to scare people. It's never too late. I can teach you some stuff, right? So they stomp their feet. What you do is you validate the emotion. You say, I can see that you're angry. He took your toy. I would be angry too if someone took my stuff. Validation. But we don't punch the wall. You see? That's how you do it, right? Anyway, so that's secure attachment. The parent was there emotionally, physically, and so forth. Then you got anxious attachment. This is where the parent was disappearing, inconsistent, and there was forms of like anger and abuse and stuff like this. So the child learns it's hard to trust people, okay? There's anxiety when there's intimacy. And I see this a lot. Part of my work, brothers ring me up or come and see me. Brother, I get engaged. I want to get engaged. I'm pumped. But when I get close, I pull out and I run for the hills. And you explore and discover that it's an anxious attachment style. Dad was not there. Dad is a police officer pretty much in the home, right? So anxious attachment style. Then you got disorganized, and then you got avoidant. Okay, I can't go too much in detail with this. We're going to go off that, right? So you got to know what attachment style you are and what attachment style your partner is. Okay, most of us are men. This is according to research, most and my own practice. Most men, so I'll answer it for you. You are all avoidant. We're all avoidant and attached, right? Naturally. This is not putting on anyone, right? But we avoid conflict. We avoid feelings. We avoid problems. When our partner, who is the women, are more anxious, they criticize when they complain. So I'm going to put something on the screen here to show how it works. So we call this the dance of the anxious and the avoidant conflict. All right. Asif, I can't see the screen. All right, let me turn around. So here, it has a female because mainly females are the ones who criticize the most, according to studies. Okay. So this is what's going on unconsciously, right? So I'm reaching out for connection, and I don't get the response I hoped for. So when she's criticizing you, underneath that, ya shabab, is what she's reaching out for connection. So you need to be emotionally mature to read this as a man, okay? When she's complaining, you got to get out of that mode of you're blaming me, you're saying I'm a failure, you're saying I'm a bad husband, to this, okay? She's not getting the response she hopes for. Her nervous system feels unsafe and moves into a fight and flight mode, okay? Now, when she goes in fight and flight mode, she's criticizing, right? Her voice might be increasing. And when she reaches out for connection, she's saying, I reach out for connection again, but this time I'm more stressed and it comes out as an attack. Because why? The man is unresponsive. Then the man, this is what's going on in his mind, I hear anger and I back off because we are avoidant. Okay? I try to calm everything down using logic and minimizing the situation. Okay? See people smiling here. And then what happens with her is I feel unheard and invalidated. I shout louder. So the 9mm pistol wasn't working. She pulls out a 12 gauge shotgun, right? Hoping that her complaint will be heard. So she shouts louder to try to make a connection with you. This is what's really going on. It's not, we see it as disrespect, a'udhu billah. But it's the nervous system speaking. Okay? And when you're shutting down, that's your nervous system speaking. I feel criticized. The man now feels criticized, feels disrespected, and I have made a mistake. So now feelings of failure are coming up, right? I back off further. I stonewall. And I start to shut down, and I feel blank and disconnected. Okay, so now you got the criticizer criticizing, and then the person that's listening shutting down. He's not listening anymore. And actually, what happens physiologically is that when you're shutting down, your body is going through a change. Okay, so your heart rate increases. Your brain is producing cortisol, which is a stress hormone. It's producing adrenaline, which is another stress hormone. And parts of your brain that empathizes and rationalizes, or not rationalizes, the logic brain is still alive, but the other brain, the part of the brain, the emotional part of the brain, to listen to another person's perspective is compromised. So really, in that state, you're in a fight and flight. You got accelerated increased heart rate and adrenaline. What's that for as a human? To fight, to actually bash someone that's intruding in your house, or to go to war, or to run from a dog, or to fight a lion. I don't recommend fighting lions, but you get what I'm saying? Yeah. But that's what it's for. That's what the body's designed for. So your body that's designed to fight or flight, which is to run and save your life, right, is in this state, husband and wife, while they're talking to each other. How can they come to a resolution like this? It's impossible, right? So then, when the man withdraws, or when stone walls, the criticizer, the more you withdraw, the more I feel unsafe. That's the dance. Okay? And the more I feel unsafe, the more I increase my voice. And then he says, or the stone waller, the more you pursue in an aggressive way, the more I withdraw. That's the cycle. You with me? So, you need to understand this dance and how to break it. So what's the criticizer seeking?
Connection.
Connection. So remember this statement. Connection over correction. You can use this for parenting, you can use this for marriage, you can use it for everything.
Bilal Unknown copyrighted that, man.
Did he? He's all got all sorts of statements. Connection over correction. So when your spouse is criticizing you or when your child's acting up or whatever, seek to connect and understand before giving advice and correcting the behavior. So what do we do when our wife is complaining? We see disrespect and we pull out every hadith under the sun. Has it ever worked?
Me. You should make sujood here.
Yeah, sujood to me. But has it ever worked? It's never worked. I never met a brother. I asked him, so you pull out all this hadith, does it work? No, brother, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Because her iman isn't of the status of...
Yeah, well, that's another what they say, right? But it's not true. It's not because of her weak iman. It's because of, it's a nervous system issue. It's an attachment issue, okay? So, when she's complaining, you need to see she's seeking a connection. When he is withdrawing, oh sisters, what do you really see? It's not that he doesn't love you. It's not that he doesn't want to talk to you or doesn't want to connect with you. It's that he is feeling small. He is feeling like a failure. So he shuts down. He thinks he's fixing the problem or minimizing the problem or controlling the problem. I ask a lot of stonewallers when they're stonewalling in my office, why do you do that? Why do you look to the side? And he goes, I'm trying to calm down, brother. You know what I mean? So he's actually trying to do good. But the results are not working for him, okay? So now I'm going to give you how to do things, okay? Instead of criticism or a harsh startup, and the Prophet ﷺ said, everything that has harshness in it is ugly, or it becomes ugly. What's the hadith? Like that, right?
No.
Everything that is harsh is ugly and disgusting. But everything that is gentle or that has gentleness in it, it's beautified. So criticism is harsh. What is criticism in the first place? Criticism is when you're using accusative language, blame language, so you're accusing and you're blaming and you're overgeneralizing. You're not being specific, okay? And you're making personality attacks. Let me give you an example. Who's awake? Because I've got to know when to stop with this stuff. Is all good with this? Interested? Alhamdulillah. Okay. So, when you overgeneralize the issue, it's like I gave the example before, you're never home. That's overgeneralized. He's sometimes home, or she's sometimes home, right? Get off your phone. You're always on your phone. This is overgeneralizing. Because you're going to feel defensive. I'm not always on my phone. Or I'm on my phone for a reason, or whatever, right? So you be specific. When you are on your phone, that's the replacement. Instead of overgeneralizing, you be very specific. Yesterday at your mother's house, when you raised your voice at me and called me names, that's specific. Not you are so disrespectful and you're always disrespectful. Don't use that. That's always. So you stay away from always, never overgeneralizing, blaming and accusative and pointing the finger. Instead, you talk about the specific situation. Yesterday, at mum's house, you raised your voice at me. That's step number one. Very specific scenario. You don't bring up 2 problems, 3 problems, 4 problems, 1 problem at a time. 1 problem at a time with your spouse.
Should it be time critical?
100%, yes.
So, for example, if it happened yesterday, it should be brought up the day after.
Very important.
Not 3 weeks later or a month later, or
Yeah.
it shouldn't be saved in the back burner. When something comes up, I'll bring it up.
Correct. Very good point, Ali. So in marriages that are not, so put a pause on what I'm saying, so I'll come back to it, because I can go on tangents. In marriages that are not going well, what's one trait is that problems occur and they don't bring it up. But it's still there. It doesn't go away. It's still there. Okay? And then it might happen again in a similar way, in a different way, or some other stuff might happen. It's piled up and piled up and piled up. So the best way to do it is shortly thereafter, try to find a good place and a good time when you're calm, you're regulated, your spouse is regulated, and you can bring it up, okay? And then you do this work. Or you might even ask him, is now a good time to bring up stuff, right? I recommend that weekly showdown meeting where this is at least, if things happen, you got that weekly meeting, you know that that's your pit stop, that's where you can bring up stuff, okay, between husband and wife. So you bring up the specific incident very specifically and without blame, okay? And without personality attacks. You're so stupid, for example, or you're such an idiot, Step number 2 is express how that made you feel. Back again, step number 1, yesterday at Mum's house, when you yelled at me in front of everyone, I felt disrespected. Not you are disrespectful. Just that shift in a small word will make a massive difference. Wallahi. I've seen it. It's magic. Okay? When you yelled at me yesterday, I felt disrespected. I felt like we didn't have an alliance in front of the people. I felt like I wasn't important. I felt hurt. So now you've got to learn how to express feelings. Oh, I don't express feelings, I'm a man, right? Express them. She gets to know you better, okay? Step number 3, ask for what you need as opposed to what you don't need. I need to feel that I'm respected in front of your family members. I need us, the next time we go there, that you show that we have some sort of alliance together. Something like that. That's how you bring up a problem, okay? Generally speaking. And when you bring up a problem, you be speaker and listener. So the complainter, the one who's complaining, the one who's listening can't be a complainer now. They don't have that luxury. If they got issues on the back of that issue, they have to wait their turn. So the complainant is complaining, that's all good. Complaints are welcome, but criticism is not welcome. Okay? So you listen, and then you summarize back what you heard. So let me get this straight. Yesterday at Mum's house, when I yelled at you and what have you, that you felt disrespected, is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. Is there anything else I need to know? No, that's about it. Oh, and also, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so, and that, okay. You know what, that makes sense why you feel, so here you empathize. Empathy is to put yourself in their shoes. That makes sense to me why you felt that way. I would feel the same way too. Not, you're over-exaggerating, or my mum's old, or you're this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Not that. You say, it makes sense to me why you feel this way. And it's as simple as that, okay? So that's the opposite to criticism. That's how you break this dance, one way. The second way is if you're being attacked, or you still feel attacked, because it's hard to do this gentle startup. You feel defensive. So defensiveness can't be in the communication. You need to replace that by taking some form of responsibility. So when your partner is saying, yesterday at Mum's house, you did this, instead of saying, no, I didn't, or I didn't mean it, that's not what I intended, and you didn't know what I was going to... You don't do that. That escalates it. What do? You take responsibility for part of the problem. You're right, I did raise my voice at you. You're right, I did say I'll change the light bulb. You're right, I did say I'll be here at 7, but it's 8 o'clock now. You see? Keeps the conversation going. And that's a very attractive trait to have if you take responsibility. Okay? And when you're stonewalling, you need to take a break instead of shutting down, because this escalates it. So when you feel, okay, it's not working, we're talking back and forth, it's escalating, now my heart rate is going above 100 beats a minute, I'm shutting down, you got to say, honey, I'm feeling flooded, because that's what we call it. I'm feeling flooded, and I can't hear you while I'm like this. So you're giving assurance. I can't hear you while I'm like this. I need to take a break and I will be back in, and you've got to give it a specific time. If you don't give a time, so some avoidant people love this. They say, I need to take a break, but they don't give a time, and they go, biruhu, ma'a salama. The spouse then loses trust within you. Then they'll chase you around the house. No, you're not going to have a break. We're going to sort this out right now. Why? Because there's an anxious attachment style. They fear abandonment. They fear you're going to leave them. They fear if this is not solved, I'm a failure, right? So you got to say, babe, honey, I'm feeling flooded. I can't hear you like this. I value the marriage more than this argument. I need to take a break. And then you come back and you start again. 100% of the time, it'll be better. Okay? So that's basically basic conflict management skills that you can start practicing.
No, Allah barik fik.
Wa fik barakallah.
There are...
Wait, you had a question, brother?
Just say, wife is keep criticizing, trying to have this emotional intelligence. She might be saying things are right.
Yeah.
How would you, because she's too emotional at that time, how would you handle her? But she's not.
Yeah.
Also, you understand her. What would you do?
So it goes back to what I said. You got to be regulated. Make sure you don't become escalated or dysregulated. And try to connect with her emotion before trying to correct her behavior or advice. So seek empathy. What are you feeling? What are you going through? Tell me more. Like, just listen to her, and then it will start to decrease. But if you show defensiveness, so defensiveness is reversing the blame, counter-attacking, passive-aggressive behavior, then she's going to only be more escalated. Okay, so you have to create that safe environment for the criticizer.
Any other questions from the floor, or should I continue with the Slido? Brothers, you're more than welcome to scan the QR codes. Are they there anymore?
I don't know.
No, they're not there. If you have any questions from the floor, please raise your hand and we'll go from there. Brother, Bismillah.
Let's say she has a outing every week with her friends and she's wearing something that's provocative to revealing, and you say, I don't like what you're wearing, for example. Conflict happens. How would you go about it?
I think prior to that, you should know exactly what you want from a spouse prior to getting married to them.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, it's setting the stage. If you want someone who is a certain level of taqwa, then this is what you should be searching for. This issue usually occurs where one of the spouses becomes more religious or more committed to deen than the other during the marriage, not prior to the marriage.
Yeah.
It's during the marriage where someone becomes more practicing, and they don't see that happening with their spouse. So in that circumstance, what do we do?
So I would recommend that if that's the level of her iman, for example, that's what she does, then you've got to find a right place and time, obviously. And you would bring it up using these skills, these techniques, talking about how you feel and what you need and what you would love, what you'd appreciate. And you've got to give her nasiha. And just do that and step back and try not to make it a thing. So if it's an absolute deal breaker for you, like an absolute deal breaker, then that's a different story. But if you married her like this and you're now more religious and she's not, or what have you, then you got to be patient. Okay, you need to be patient in these things. So you would say, look, when you walk out and you're, in those tight sort of clothes, I'm a little bit jealous. I feel jealous. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And well, I'd love it I'd really, really appreciate it if just a little bit looser next time, inshallah. Well, I'd love that. It means so much to me. Instead of the criticism. Criticism doesn't work. This has more of a chance to work. Now, she might say, well, who are you? And blah, blah, blah. And that's a different story. You might need professional help there's probably background issues or what have you. This is generally the best way to do it, or the simplest way.
No, but on that point as well, so the external appearance is reflecting of your internal state. So we have to look at the person now. Are they praying? Do they read Quran? Is there attachment to deen? Or is it for you just a appearance thing? So for example, I'm seen as this now. people will think badly of me if they see my spouse like this.
That's a very good point.
So now, is it care about your spouse or is it care about your image?
I've seen many marriages fail on this route, really. So the brother starts practicing. Tabarakallah, very good. But it becomes more of a, like he's part of a group now, he's part of a da'wah, he's part of this, part of that. And now he's ashamed of his wife, who's not on that level. And he's not even on that level. He's still, he's not his prayers.
He thinks he is.
He thinks he is. This because in the social settings, but his deen hasn't really changed. So then enforcing that onto the spouse can cause major problems because both of you are not even there. And she knows you're not even there. She knows you're a hypocrite. What do you mean? You don't wake up for Fajr, do you know what I mean? So that can happen. So it has to be an internal thing, as Brother Ali said, very good advice there. It has to be an internal thing, a gradual thing, and a step-by-step thing, and then it can come out on the outside. And most of the times I've seen, when you do it properly on the inside, the internal work, and the spouses are doing some work together, like they don't have to be on the same level exactly Islamically, but there is some sort of growth together Islamically. They might read it as like a book club. They might have a book club. Every month they choose a book, softener of the heart or whatever, and they both read it, and they got now something to discuss. When you got this happening in the background, you got one salah happening in the house, at least one. She sees you that you're good.
You have an Umrah trip.
You have an Umrah trip together. You listen to her. You have no issues taking shura from her, advice from her, seeking her counsel, even accepting her influence. You will have more of a chance that your advice is received as a leader. There's actually studies on this, right? That husbands who refuse to share power or accept their partner's influence, their marriage will self-destruct 81% of the time, over time. By saying, no, that's a good point. I didn't see it that way. Oh, you reckon we should buy a Honda instead of a Toyota? Why? Well, I read this review that Hondas are good. Okay, let's go get a Honda then. For example, right? Or doing shura with them. Not just doing things on your own all the time. Run things by the wife. She feels important. She feels she has a say. And she should have a say. It's her house. She's part of the relationship, right? When you do that, and then you use these skills, you have more of a chance. But when there's no accepted influence, she's shut down all the time, I'm the man, and any leader who has to always say I'm the leader is a crap leader. This is psychologically speaking. You can't always imagine a CEO saying, I'm the boss, you obey me. Wallah, you say, Habibi, get lost, you and your work. And it shows insecurity. A good leader, it's actually part of the psychology of good leadership, is to accept your subject's influence. Consult with them. The Prophet ﷺ would do this. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. That's an ayah.
It's a command in the ayah for the Prophet ﷺ to do to the Sahaba.
The Prophet ﷺ to do shura with, take the advice of the Sahaba.
And prior to that, it's about character. The start of the ayah is about
character.
Yes,
it was about character. Yes, character building and so forth.
رحمة من الله لنت لهم ولو كنت فظا غليظ القلب لانفضوا من حولك فاعف عنهم
Yes. Very good.
واغفر لهم وشاورهم في الأمر.
Subhanallah. So it's part of the whole good character, being merciful and lenient and so forth. Allah commanded the Prophet to do that. He also, in another ayah, وَأَمْرَهُمْ بَيْنَهُمْ شُورًا. In another ayah, about breastfeeding, if I can remember, someone who's a memorizer, عَنْ تَرَادٍ مِنْهُمَا وَتَشَاوُرٍ. Allah is saying, we know that breastfeeding 2 years and all that stuff, right? Allah says in another verse that if you want to stop breastfeeding your children before the 2-year period, with shura, وَتَشَاوُرٍ. Husband and wife mutually consult. The husband doesn't just force her, 2 years, you have to. Allah is saying there's no problem. فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَلَيْهِمَا. So even in that matter, Allah is saying to the Prophet, to us, do shura with your wife and accept their influence, but make it a balance. The way I like to look at it is like this. Your wife asks for something? No. Can I go here? No. Can I do that course? No. Can I see my sister? No. Can I? No. No, 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 no. Habibi, that's lopsided now. Like that. Okay? What's going to happen? She's going to feel, this is where your marriage self-destructs. Okay? You need to balance out your no's with yeses And not just with yeses, but with, that's a good point. I didn't see it that way. Tabarakallah, that's a very good idea. That's what you need to do. And that lifts her up. It lifts her up. She feels, I have a say. Okay? When you do that, akhi, you have a more chance, I guess, to, your advice will be given. Your advice will be taken more.
The influence.
The influence will be that. Those who accept influence will be more influential. Remember that.
I think the brother, that his point was influence in whether it's a good way or a bad way, deen-wise. This is where we go back to the internal state. So the more we work on the internal state of the spouse, the better the outcome will be over time and the more sustainable it will be over time. For example, say her love for you is so great at the beginning, she puts niqab on. A year later, she realizes the love isn't that great. Niqab didn't mean anything to her anyway because she never had that level of iman, and it comes off. And to you, that was like, this is the reason why I got married to you.
Yeah.
You know? It's because the internal state was never worked on at that time. There was no actual iman building. There was just pleasing of people. And when that pleasing characteristic of that person stops, everything else that you promised and you did will also go with it as well. That's why you see the major change from 0 to 100% in 2.2 seconds, Tesla. And then back. Yeah? Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that's some very good points there, brothers.
No.
Okay, any other questions?
There are a few. A lot of them are around dealing with in-laws that are affecting the marriage. And the amount that the wife needs to comply towards her husband's requests with the in-laws and whatnot.
Okay, so first and foremost, there is no obligation from the deen for the wife to be a servant or obedient or whatever at all to the in-laws. That's the first point. Then you get men who say, yeah, but she has to obey me and I create a rule now that has to be obeyed, and I said she has to obey my mum. That's crap. Your marriage is going to self-destruct. If that's how you do marriage, stop it, please. That doesn't work, brothers. It does not work when you enforce. Anything forced, anything grasped, anything controlled doesn't have barakah in it. It's like, I know this is an extreme example, but when you force people to enter Islam, what happens? Hypocrites. You create hypocrites. So are we creating hypocrites within our own families? You know what I mean? Out of fear of you type of thing. So first and foremost, the wife doesn't owe them anything. Whatever she does is sadaqah, it's good treatment, it's out of the love for the husband, and that's encouraged. Okay? But there are cultures that the mother-in-law, is the controller of the ship. Of the boy, of the son, and of the wife.
And of their decisions.
She decides his finances. She decides, big decisions. She has massive influence. She has the say. This causes major, major conflicts. This is not what Islam wants from the family. Allah called the marriage a very sacred, intimate relationship. Your mum can't be in the middle between you and your wife in bed. Okay? If she can't be there, she can't be anywhere else. Okay? Your mum has her spot and her respect, her pedestal, and your wife has her own. And a wise, smart man knows how to deal with both. Now, one thing I see all the time is that trust is broken, but not through cheating. Trust is broken, and people feel betrayed, not through cheating, through this, where, let's say, the mother-in-law of the husband or the wife is criticizing the son-in-law or the daughter-in-law. They're disrespecting, or the brother-in-law is insulting his brother's wife, swearing at her, calling her names, whatever the case may be. In a social gathering, people are disrespecting your partner, and you sit there like a plank of wood. Nothing destroys trust more than this, because you are breaking what we call here a proof of alliance between you and your partner. They feel you don't have their back. You are not there when they need you. Okay? One of the criteria to build trust, there's 5 criteria on the thing here. The last one is proof of alliance that you're building continuously. So, your brother calls your wife a B-I, etc., you say, Akhi, do not call my wife that. That's my arad and my sharaf and my wife. You do not talk to her. You don't get permission to talk to her this way. Reframe that word, reword that, take that back. Mum does the same thing, you say the same thing. Okay? That's the best approach through this. When you create that proof of alliance, you're building trust. I got your back, you got mine. I got your best interest, you will be there for me. And the question that couples are asking all the time to build trust is, will you be there for me when? And then fill in the blanks. Will you be there for me when your mother criticizes me? Will you be there for me when I'm sick? Will you still be here for me when I'm fat? Will you still be there for me when I'm broke? Will you be there for me when I'm sad, when I'm angry, will you be there for me? That's the question. So when you don't build that proof of alliance, you're chipping away at the trust. So I don't know if that answers the question. I go on tangents. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
So it was about the in-laws, yeah? So building boundaries around that, and then how to, show justice in this matter. So it'll be just to the wife, just to the mother, just to the father, just to everyone.
Yeah.
But with never compromising what you are involved in now.
Yeah, so the respect so people say, but what about birr al-walidain and ihsan to the parents? You can do birr al-walidain and ihsan to the parents, and still build a proof of alliance with your spouse. What is birr al-walidain anyway? People say, that thing that came out with that soccer player, which was all a scam anyway, it wasn't even real. What was it called?
How he
what was his name? Hakimi or something. I don't know if it was true or not, whatever. But the point is that when that came out, in my office, that was the talk of the town. Well, my husband wants to be like Hakimi now. You know what I mean? All right. So people were saying that's birr al-walidain. It's not. It's just an option. He thought if it was true, that's the best option for him at the time. And it's working for him. It doesn't work for everyone. Okay? And it's not even working for him. He got divorced and is accused of rape. I don't know. Allahu alam, right? But the point is that, what's the point again?
It's about defining birr al-walidain.
Yes. So birr al-walidain is what? It's respect to the parents. It's not really ta'ah. So a man, technically speaking, you want to be textbook Muslim? I can be a textbook Muslim too. Technically speaking, there's no ta'ah word in birr al-walidain. Bir means righteousness, good character, treatment towards them. The other verse, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. What's ihsana? Good treatment. Yes, that you need to do. That's obligatory. But that doesn't mean, these two can coexist. You can be ihsan to your parent and tell them, please don't talk about my wife like that. That's not against birr al-walidain at all. You see? But like this Hakimi thing was, that's birr al-walidain, and this is Islam. Allahu Akbar. It's not. That's not Islam. Right? This is not ihsan. Okay? Not ihsan to one person while oppressing another. Does that answer the question?
No, Allah barik fik. Last question, because the food's getting cold.
Oh yeah, there's food. Sinna, wallah.
Last question, inshallah. So the question is around, because bouncing off this Hakimi issue, in regards to finances and shared distribution of household chores and work and whatnot, a lot of the current understanding in society, Muslim society, is that the man does nothing at home, contributes nothing other than earning the wealth.
Right.
Also, that finances should be separated in the sense of the woman receives her minimum amount to, what the Sharia stipulates in regards to shelter and food and one piece of clothing a year. No, so she receives what meets her need, but she has nothing to do with the finances of the husband whatsoever, and vice versa. So I don't like to use the word 21st century, but in the 21st century,
we are living in the 21st century, right?
Current environment that we're in, Is this a healthy way to approach marriage?
Okay, so with this, a lot of urf comes involved.
No.
So you might go to a country where that works, that system works.
Yep.
I get clients from overseas, and that system works. The wife is happy. I don't care about what you do with your finances, because over there there's a bit of sharia, even though it's not a sharia, but there's rights.
There's no fear of injustice when someone dies.
She can go to court and she can really get her rights, you know, with the ulama and what have you, right? So she doesn't want really more than the comfortable life that he's given her. So it works for them. But in other countries, and the majority of the countries, that system may not work. So you got to look at the urf of your country, and urf is one of the laws of tashri', right? Urf, so there's 5 sources of law, right? One of the Quran, Sunnah, Ijma' and so forth, Qiyas, and the last one is urf, knowing your customary practice. So that the aada can become sharia, as Imam al-Shafi'i said. Okay? So if the urf is that, you know, this is not the case, then you shouldn't do that, because it won't work. And I've seen it in these countries, it doesn't work. Okay? When the wife is working, because you need 2 incomes, automatically if her role initially was the house homemaker, once she works, that role now is not her primary role anymore. It's shared between you and her. You see? So what works, you have to keep on shuffling, seeing what's working for you guys. Is both working, one not working, what have you? You know what I mean? And in some situations, I've met husbands who've become disabled, and the wife who's had a degree but didn't work, for example, she went and became a teacher, and she's the breadwinner, and she's happy. They just switched roles, and he's at home. You know, he can do minimal things at home and stuff like that, and she's the breadwinner, and they're happy. We don't know, you see? So it can't be black and white, and you need to look at the urf, the customs in your place of dwelling.
And I think on that point as well, transparency there, in regards to building the trust, transparency in all matters.
Yeah, so if you're not transparent with your like finances, you're not transparent with your let's say with your
situation.
You know, your whole situation.
So there are so many brothers, for example, they feign and they fake being wealthy. So they get their wife used to that from the start of marriage.
Oh yeah,
but
so
really
they're in the start.
They're taking loans off everyone, and then when they get a knock on the door from a debt collector, where's the money?
He's jumping fences.
Where's the money? And then you've lost that because you weren't transparent.
Yeah.
And she never felt that struggle with you or that journey.
That's correct, yeah. And on that point of transparency to build trust, so people who are secretive, like imagine you're on your phone like this, and your partner walks in, and you go, that's sus, right? That's not. So when you're doing that, when you got shady behavior, you don't know. She doesn't know what you don't know about each other's finances, your whereabouts, these types of things. It breaks trust. And if you've done any infidelity, this is one thing that you need to work on. You need to be very transparent. You lose the privilege of certain things. You need to be more transparent than the average Joe. Okay?
No.
Okay, so we'll leave it there.
Any other questions, brothers?
Is there a Qasim Afuni in this crowd? A Qasim? No? Well, he's probably listening anyway. Okay.
خير إن شاء الله. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك اللهم وأتوب إليك. Thank you very much for your attendance. That's the final of our 3-part series. Please stay. We have food at the back. Inshallah, make your way there, and we'll see you for our next Tuesday night lectures, inshallah. The next one, ask Sheikh Abu Ubaida, inshallah, he'll let you know. No, it won't be. This is the 3rd one in marriage. If you want to view any of the previous ones, by all means go on our YouTube or our Facebook. You'll be able to access those videos.